Hi, my name is Merri Pattinian, and this is my studio. This is actually my playground. This is where I work myself to death, and this is probably the place I love the most. I was a graphic designer for 20 years in New York City. I used to take the trains every day. I lived in Brooklyn, and I worked for various companies. I actually ultimately wound up being a freelance graphic designer. So I started working at the #1 advertising agency in San Diego, worked there for 2 years. Then I moved to the #2 agency, worked there for a couple of years, and then there was really nowhere left to go. So I wound up opening up my own design business in California, and I did that for 6 or 7 years before we moved to Texas. And there were just no jobs in advertising. You'd go into the agencies and they would just be, decimated. There'd be like no one. There was no work. So at that point, I felt it was now time to really do my art full time. So that's basically where I started, was in 1985 in Houston. The kind of artwork that I do is very unusual because I'm not painting per se. I'm not using watercolors, pastels. I use everything. I always had this fantasy when I was a child of having a studio that in every corner I would do something different. In one corner I could work with clay and do sculpture, and another corner I could, paint. In another corner I could do watercolors. Somewhere else I could do collage. Everything has short little steps, anywhere from 15 minutes to the most maybe 2 hours. But each piece may have 20 steps. So they take a long time, but each thing is fast and short and kind of keeps me busy. These are what I call my little toy box. Things that are partially done, that are in various stages. This is a collage piece. Here's a perfect example. Here's a collage piece that I've done, which isn't finished. Half of these are not in finished stages. They've just kind of begun. But it becomes, do I want to keep it, do I love this middle piece and just want to work with that, or do I want to put something else in there? I'm always manipulating. I have drawers of little elements that I make. This is when I was experimenting with, I use a lot of different textures and mediums. This is actually cement, and so I'll make a background just to experiment with different media, and it's just kind of waiting for something. Sometimes I've had things glued on and I can rip them off and then just replace them with something else. Look at that background. I just absolutely love it, and now it's a question of finding the right thing for me to either make on it or have made already, and there's a piece sitting there. A lot of times what I do is I work everything separately. So I have the backgrounds, and I'll have the piece that's going to go on the background. And I work them both separately, and they both just look great. They just look fabulous. And then I go to put them together, to assemble it, and for whatever reason, they just don't work together. So now I have this fabulous background and this fabulous, element, but they don't go together. So now I have to create a new background for that element and a new element for this background. So I just wind up with kind of stacks of things. That's pretty much how I work. I have 2 different ways of working. Most of it's in the organization. And if I kind of know where everything is, I can do that. When I moved here, these shelves were stacked with things. And over the years, I'm kind of dwindling it all down. And I have this fantasy that one day I'm just going to use up every single thing in my studio, and I'm just going to go, done. And that's when I can get to retire, because artists never really retire. We're always working. So this is a piece I've recently finished. And it's a very involved piece. It's a woven metal. The metal has been embossed before it was woven. So you have all sorts of things going on here. And then this is a paper I made a long time ago that I'm recycling. and then the little pieces of metal. Now, I planned on using this on this background, so I worked on this background, I worked on it, and then after I finished it, I wasn't really quite sure whether or not I liked the two of them together, whether the art itself should just be on a flat mat board, you know, or whether it needs to go on this whole background. So, since I can't decide, they both get shelved. And so they go into my little pile of work that's finished, but I haven't made decisions about. I can either take a piece like that and just have it matted and framed, or maybe I want to make it larger and put it on that background. I haven't decided. So I just kind of keep things ready to go, because one never knows from show to show how much you'll sell and what you need. And since I can't produce anything fast enough during the week, I just keep pieces of art ready to go. I'm starting to go to the Midwest, so I've just pulled out all my leaf stuff. For the Midwest, I'd like to do leaf pieces, so I'll probably take that when I go. So that's pretty much how I work in terms of just making elements, putting them together. Sometimes I have a game plan, sometimes I don't. And the exciting part is not having a game plan and winding up with something that you had no idea when you started out that that's what you'd wind up with. And talking about winding up, this winds up our first segment. Thank you very much.